New York Giants almost made it to the playoffs last year, but didn't. Far from a winning record, trying to build something in the right direction. Joe Judge, better than I thought the team would be in his first season as the head coach. Daniel Jones, the franchise quarterback that they hope becomes the guy. The jury is still out as he enters year 3. What are the areas that you would identify, Myles, as the biggest spots where the Giants need to improve this year?
Honestly, I feel like you could just put a big umbrella over it and just say offense. I mean, when you finish, 31st in the league in points scored and you're 31st in the league in yards gained, you got to do something to improve that offense. And I think that they will be better just from the return of Saquon Barkley. I mean, that obviously is going to have a dramatic effect on the offense just because of what he can do as a running back and how special he is as a running back. But man, I mean, whether it's improving at wide receiver, you got to get more production out of the tight end spot, I think, as well. You just have so many different issues that you probably have to address on offense because they weren't bad on defense. I mean, they weren't terrible. They finished in the top 10, I think, in points allowed. So there are pieces that I think you've got on defense. But offensively, those guys with Jason Garrett have really got to figure it out because if you don't, then you're not going to win ball games.
I think back to the 2 times the Giants have won the Super Bowl this century, 2007, 2011. What did they have? They had a great defensive line. They had a great offensive line. That it's not nearly as sexy as the skill position players, but that is where you lay the foundation for your championship team. And we've seen it with the Giants multiple times. The offensive line, they need, and I know it's not easy. You never know how guys are going to pan out. Sometimes guys work, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you spend a lot of money on a guy in free agency and he plays well. Sometimes he doesn't. But that's where they need to keep focusing on improving the team. They've got Saquon Barkley. They've got the quarterback that they believe in. Offensive and defensive lines, the better those get, the better the Giants will be. And they're fortunate to be in the worst division in football, where the path to the postseason isn't nearly as fraught as it would be elsewhere. All right, give me a guy that you see the Giants adding this year, either via free agency or the draft or trade.
I think Curtis Samuel is somebody that could maybe fit that mold, and it's because he was one of the last draft picks from David Gettleman's class in 2017 that he got there in Carolina right before he was fired, then over the summer, and now, of course, he is the general manager of the New York Giants. Another guy that maybe should be thinking about the seat being warm under him. They've only had 15 wins since he's been there, but I think Curtis Samuel is the kind of guy that can be a dynamic offensive player in the right system. You saw last year, he's taking some snaps at running back there with the Panthers. He's a good receiver, especially was good on third downs, but they really need somebody to come in and elevate that offense a little bit. And frankly, I think that the top tier wide receivers, your Chris Godwins of the world, Kenny Golladay, Allen Robinson, I don't know that they're going to be available. They may get franchise tagged, or if I'm them, I don't know how much I want to go play for the Giants unless they're offering me a ton of money. So I think Curtis Samuel's one of those guys that could be in maybe that second tier that you convince yourself into saying, yeah, he's a really good wide receiver and he can help us, Mike.
I think somebody is going to look at A.J. Green and say, why not? Why can't we get him back to who he was? He entered the league in 2011. If he's healthy, he can be very productive. Last year, it was strange. There were a lot of balls thrown his way, but only 45% completion rate for all of his targets. He had over 100 targets last year with the Cincinnati Bengals. But as the Giants, and I know this contradicts what I said earlier, but you've got other means for improving your offensive and defensive line. I think that A.J. Green could be a value signing in free agency. The money's not going to be there. It's not going to be the kind of contract that other free agent receivers will be getting, and who knows how much is going to be available to them. With so many young receivers coming up through the draft every year, because all those 7-on-7 camps, the quarterbacks are getting the reps, the receivers are getting the reps, and better receivers are coming in all the time. It's becoming like the running back position. You don't have to pay a ton of money for a veteran receiver. You just go draft a guy. Just draft a guy. But I think they can get a good deal with A.J. Green, and maybe he can add something to that offense by way of experience, leadership, maturity. I'm kind of intrigued by that. I'm intrigued by A.J. Green generally, but of all the teams that we've been looking at, this is the first time it kind of stood out to me that maybe that makes sense for A.J. Green this year. All right, give me a guy that you think they're going to get rid of.
Well, I think it's going to be Dalvin Tomlinson, and I think that they would probably like to keep him. I mean, he's a solid young player on that defensive line, somebody that they picked previous regime, but somebody that the Giants picked in 2017. But I think that they're probably only going to be able to keep one of him or Williams, and especially if they tag Williams, you're just tying up a lot of money there on that defensive line. And Dalvin Tomlinson, I think, is just somebody that's going to be able to go somewhere else, be a guy who can stuff the run, do a good job with that. Also, maybe push the pocket from the middle a little bit. He did have 3.5 sacks last season. So he's somebody I think that probably can go elsewhere and get paid more than he will if he sticks with the Giants, Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.